WBCB presents Pro Wrestling Weekly.
Enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
Can't believe I'm putting my voice to this.
Call in with a question or comment at 215-949-3232 or 888-922-2149.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
And now, here's your host of Pro Wrestling Weekly, Fearon.
The first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I got to say. I'm a broadcast journalist. I have a right to my opinion.
Oh, son of a...
I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary.
There's the sound of the bell, and we are off. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. I'm your host, Fearon, alongside Lucas the Intern, as well as Nick Cataldi.
Yay!
Pushing the buttons, turning the dials, doing as he usually does. And this is a special week here for the show. This past Thursday actually celebrated 15 years to the day of the debut of this program. So what we did here, if you want to get CD track 2 going up there, well, this will pretty much introduce.
What you gonna do? Wrestling God. That's killer. WBCB presents. That's cool. Are you talking to me? Pro Wrestling Radio. Come, get some. Can you feel it? Oh, the damn phone. Call in with a question or comment. 6-1. Just bring it. What is he doing? At 1-888-922-2149. Oh, it's true. Don't make me hurt you. Be awesome. Now be the man. You got it. That's hard time. I hate your ever. And now your host of the show. That's how I roll. Eric.
That's right. The original host of Pro Wrestling Radio, as it was known then, Eric Gargiulo, joining me on the line. Eric, how does it feel to be back on the radio after all these years?
Wow, Fran, I got chills listening to that. You know, I mean, you prepared me a little bit for it, but actually hearing it and hearing the network news as I was on hold, I got chills listening to that, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, first, I guess, I know it's been, almost 5 years now since... What have you been up to? What's been going on in the world of Eric Gargiulo?
Oh, wow. What hasn't been going on in the world of Eric Gargiulo? Got married, had a baby, bought a house, moved. So been a very busy guy. As far as the wrestling world goes, it'll be 5 years this March that I've launched the Camel Clutch blog, which has been a blog, and it's basically turned into a radio show on the web, in that all of those same opinions that I used to come on and spew from 12 to 1 for all those years on WBCB, I now took those opinions to the web, and it's been wonderful. It's blown up. It's become its own little monster. And I am joined by a whole host of other writers on there, and I try and update that every day with several blogs, and it's kind of kept me in the loop of things, and as well as being a part of social media and social networking. I've tried to keep up with podcasting as much as my schedule will allow, and what's really nice about that is it's just so great to hear from all of the old listeners that I had on Pro Wrestling Radio on WBCB. Will find me on Facebook from time to time, or Twitter, or on the blog, or on iTunes, and they're like, hey, and it really, I love hearing from everybody. I really do, and it's kind of nice because, you know, you go away and then you just think everybody forgets about you, and then one day, you know, you wake up and there's this long email from somebody that used to listen to you in Scotland, through BCB online. So keeping busy. The Camel Clutch blog keeps me very busy and keeps me in touch with all the fans, which is great, and kind of keeps me in the loop with all the wrestling news. So it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I've gotten the chance to check out little bits here and there. Actually, courtesy of your site, I've gotten the chance to meet a mutual friend, Justin Henry.
Oh, Justin's awesome. Justin's great. And, you know, Justin's one of those guys that really jumped on board early on, and he really liked what I was doing and sent me some rating, and I thought he was brilliant, quite frankly, and it just blows me away that guys like Justin and other writers on the Camel Clutch, it blows me away that they're out there, and they have this passion for writing, and they're eloquent, they're witty, they're very, very intelligent. And yet they come to the Camel Clutch blog for an opportunity to kind of get their names out there and get their writings out there. But Justin's more than just a blogger on the site. I consider him a friend. He was a listener when I was on BCB, and then when I started doing the podcast, he would always call into the podcast every week. So yeah, Justin's a good guy, and just one of the smartest writers I've ever met in and out of wrestling.
Yeah, no, he's very brilliant. I mean, he does stuff for a litany of sites. Yours, I think, is one of the first that he started with. I think that, and I'll give RD a plug over at WrestleCrap.com. Why not? Shameless plugs are nothing new to the program.
It's a cheap plug, the good old cheap pro wrestling radio, pro wrestling weekly plug.
Yeah, no, that not much has changed in that regard. But I mean, how about the landscape since the last time we were on the air together? I think I'm trying to remember back to that crossover episode back in March of 09. I think that was right around the time that Test passed, if I remember right.
Oh my gosh, Ron! I mean, just how incredibly different. I go back to when I started pro wrestling radio 15 years ago, going back that far, and just taking a step back and looking at what the wrestling landscape was like back then. I mean, for somebody like me and somebody like you who do these kind of shows on a weekly basis, well, I did back then, it made my job a heck of a lot easier because you had all of this news coming in on a weekly basis. You had ECW, you had WCW, you had, of course, the WWE, WWF, and you had the international scene, which was hotter and much different at the time. And I just remember doing those shows early on, and I would come, well, back then we would do them on location. I would come on location or come to the studio, and I'd have just pages and pages of just wrestling news from the week, and there was just always so much going on, and I'd never get to, I mean, I'd be lucky if I got past the first page and a half. And I mean, now it's just so different. It's like it's all WWE. Even back then, Fearon, when you and I did that crossover show 5 years ago, I mean, it was just different. I mean, now you have TNA, and I feel like back then when you and I did that crossover, I feel like TNA had a lot more potential back then, and of course it got bigger. But I felt like there was just more of this groundswell and this buzz about TNA back then as it is now. Unfortunately, WWE was much different. The star power was much different. I think the way wrestling was even presented on TV was much different back then. I mean, and now, I mean, I'm sure you've probably spent countless weeks talking about it. You have the network coming, which just completely turns the industry upside down, in my opinion. And I mean, it just changes everything. So, I mean, going back 5 years with you and I, and then going back 15 years to what wrestling looked like back then, I mean, my goodness, it makes you feel really old, quite frankly, when, it's like when I was around, I walked to school, barefoot in the snow. It's like when I was around, there was a WCW, an ECW, a whole lot of international, and,
NWA.
When you start naming the stars, and it's like, you're talking to a previous generation or even two at that point.
Yeah, our intern here chiming in saying when we were around the NWA was a big thing as well.
Kind of
taking a little bit of a jab at it.
Not really a jab. I'm just saying, I'm just adding to the thing. It's
contributing. That's what the interns do.
I considered myself an old soul, so I'd like to be welcome to this generation that you're talking about.
Yeah, teenager. He's looking forward to the WWE Network to see all the stuff that I know I've been talking about and telling all the stories.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to see a lot of the. In fact, I don't even need the network. Just give me a WrestleMania anthology, and we'll call it easy.
and that's exactly what I'm talking about, Fearon. It's like there you go, Lucas, your intern. he hears about all this stuff. I'm sure he hears about it every week, and maybe you get a call now and then talking about this great match you and the caller watched the kid, or you talk about these great promos, and you can only dig up so much on YouTube. And now you have this on-demand library where if you take a call next week and somebody's talking about Hulk Hogan and Paul Orndorff, the Paul Orndorff Hulk Hogan angle to go way back, and all of a sudden, the people listening to your show are like, wow, didn't even know that existed. Jump on the network and they're watching it in 30 seconds, depending, of course, what their connection is. So I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, the network just completely changes everything and really has a chance to expose, generations. I mean, even me and you both. I mean, I'm sure there's wrestling in the early '70s that I would love to watch. On the Madison Square Garden network. I'm sure I would like to watch what Nick Cataldi was watching. In the 1920s when he was a kid. So I mean, there's just so much out there.
You thought I left the room. You thought I left the room, didn't you?
Oh, wait, what? Is this on?
Oh, yeah.
We are live.
Yeah, I remember Ed Strangler Lewis, and Man Mountain Dean. Yeah, I remember all those guys.
I remember in the 30s it was a lot different.
Yeah, I thought this was the pre-interview.
That's when it was real.
Yeah, this is the screening. We'll edit stuff out for later.
No, you won't.
What he was saying, though, I remember during a Moose Moretti show, and during the intermission, he showed me the This Is Your Life bit with The Rock and Mankind. And,
yes.
Oh, that was gold.
The highest rated segment in Monday Night Raw history.
Just stop The Rock at second base. Get out of here.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
you
that's
can say that,
exactly
right?
it. Stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
you're good.
I have a quick question. Some years ago, Eric, there was a guy on Combat Zone Wrestling, a real handsome guy, dressed really well, using your name. Do you know anything about this?
Well, he's probably put on a couple of pounds since then, a little hair since then. Marriage and a child to do that, but yeah.
Oh, you mean that was you?
Yeah, you never know it now. But, yes, those are some fun times. Those are some times. Really lucky to be a part of that era.
Right.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, I mean, you mentioned the network. I mean, what jumps out at you the most as far as like the intrigue of the WWE network?
Oh my goodness! I've written so much about it, and I've done some podcasts about it. I think really, I'm just curious to see how different the WWE is presented a year from now. They don't have that incentive anymore on television to sell their pay-per-views, to sell the to increase the buy rates. I mean, at this point, it's all about the network, and once people have the network, they're getting the pay-per-view for free, essentially, or for this $9.99 a month. So, now there's no more excuses when it comes to a guy like a Daniel Bryan or a Dolph Ziggler or anybody when, WWE, when they say they can't push him because, he's not going to draw buy rates. He's not going to draw buys. Well, it doesn't matter at this point because people are buying WWE as a package on the network and they're not necessarily buying individual pay-per-views anymore. So, that's one aspect is to see if they actually give the ball to some of these new stars without that pressure anymore of having to draw the buy rates. And I mean, I just think television is going to be so much different because now, they're booking their television to sell the pay-per-views. And I think now they're going to start booking their pay-per-views to sell the television. So, it's funny because people are all excited they're going to get these pay-per-views, essentially for free, $9.99 a month, whatever. But I think pay-per-views are going to look a lot different. I don't think you're going to see pay-per-views, these stacked matches that you saw before because, again, the incentive isn't there to get you to pay, $54.95. At this rate, the incentive is to get you to tune into Raw on Monday night and increase the ratings. So now, do they take those matches that you would have to buy on pay-per-view and put them on Monday nights? Do they save all the good stuff for Monday nights and Fridays or Thursdays or whatever night SmackDown's going to wind up on? So I'm just really curious to see how the way that wrestling, the WWE, presents their product on television and pay-per-view changes over the next 12 months.
Can I just interject here? I think it's the fact that I think they will want to keep stacking the pay-per-views because think about it. Once you get first of all, you have to pay 6 months in advance, actually. You have to pay about the same as an actual pay-per-view just for the 6 months. You can't just buy 1 month and drop it. But I'm saying I feel like they'd want to keep stacking the pay-per-views because what happens after that 6 months and the fans think, oh, those pay-per-views aren't doing so well. I think I'm going to drop the network. Or they might not just do it because they might not do that, but like they might stop watching the pay-per-views. Like,
I don't know. I think there's. I mean, if the only way that would happen is if WWE feels that the rest of their content, the archived stuff, the new content they're pumping out, whether it's Legends House or the pre and post shows for Raw and SmackDown, if they feel that that's enough of a draw that they can kind of back off on their pay-per-views, they may go that direction, but that's hard to say.
I'd actually like to see, though, like, sorry, this is the last thing, I promise, for right now at least. You're not getting rid of me that quick, but yeah. I got one laugh.
He's a spunky one.
Yeah, but it's like
I hear that.
Yeah, I'm saying why don't we just do the opposite? Why don't we have like the Raw and SmackDown shows stacked up a little bit, and then like if we're gonna keep it like flatline, why don't we stack up some of the Raw and SmackDown shows too?
Well, what's funny?
That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen. They're going to stack the Raw and SmackDown shows. I think it's one of those B pay-per-views that are going to take the hit. I think you're going to have the big four, like, your Survivor Series, your Royal Rumbles, your SummerSlams, because, of course, as Fearon was saying, you want these people to renew, and they'll have the archives. But, I really think those B pay-per-views, the paybacks and all those other pay-per-views, I think they're going to take a little bit of a hit. I really do. I think you're going to see the bigger matches on TV, and, now I think the incentive is going to be more to increase ad revenue and increase ad rates on Raw. And I could be completely wrong, but this is just kind of where I'm seeing this going.
What I want to know... Sorry, okay. You go.
Yeah, I know.
You go.
Yeah, you said you were done. At least I thought. Now, as far as... I guess kind of my counter-argument to the whole push thing is who's to say that pressure as far as pushing a particular wrestler, instead of leaning toward pay-per-view buy rates and maybe ratings on TV, maybe it goes to house show draws.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old school way to look at it. And I think and from what I understand, that definitely still plays a part in it. And that's a big part of the counter argument to this whole Daniel Bryan debate that I'm sure you've talked about endlessly on your show. I know I've blogged about it quite a bit and tweeted about it hundreds of times. But that's been a big part of it, is that when they have the split house shows, and they had house shows where Daniel Bryan was headlining, Cena's house shows were blowing them away. And that wasn't the only thing, but house shows, from what I understood, were still a big part of the equation in determining whether Daniel Bryan or anybody else was drawing when they were pushed to the top.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, I hate to do it. Can you hang on for another segment? We're up against those timeouts. They always just rush up on you.
I would love to. It'd be a pleasure. This is great. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is it's amazing. It's an event almost 5 years in the making. The reunion. I don't know. I'd think of a comparison, but I can't really. I don't know. Not necessarily the mega powers, because we don't have that kind of heat against each other.
Well, maybe Fearon and I do.
Yeah, Lucas is starting quickly with that. All right, but anyway, we'll take care of some business. We'll come back. Eric the Loose Cannon Gargiulo with us. I know Ed from Northeast Philly's been hanging on. We'll see if we can get him in on the other side here as well. From what I was told from my program director, there are also a couple of surprises, so I'm kind of intrigued by that. We'll see what's going on here, and there's also room for you to chime in as well. Facebook's been blowing up, the WBCB Pro Wrestling Weekly Facebook fan page, and nothing but love for Eric Gargiulo. And we'll get a little bit more into that on the other side as well. As we'll see if we can squeeze in your calls as well. 215-949-3232, as well as toll-free at 888-922-2149. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Hi, this is Merrill Reese, and I want to congratulate Eric Gargiulo and Fearon Derry on 15 years of Pro Wrestling Weekly on 1490 WBCB. From the Attitude Era to the ECW and the New World Order, these guys were there giving you a suplex of knowledge and controversy. Thank you for 15 great years, even though both of you look like young Mick Foleys.
Oh boy, it's going to be one of those shows. I can feel it.
And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host, Fearon Derry.
And gosh darn it, he's a nice guy too. Yes, I am. Wow, and apparently I look like a young Mick Foley. Wow, thanks to Merrill Reese. I did not know that was coming. Wow, welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry alongside Lucas the Intern, Nick Cataldi, pushing buttons, turning dials, and yay.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm
there
sorry.
we go.
I was busy pushing buttons.
You were busy doing what you're supposed to do. Exactly.
And realizing that insult that I had earlier.
Yes, and that insult coming, of course, from the loose cannon Eric Gargiulo. You never know what he's going to say.
Camel clutched me,
Well, yeah, he'll make you humble. That's for sure. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm not humbled here. Although, I mean, I'm still humbled to be doing this now for almost 5 years. Filling in for you. I mean, I don't know. I guess at this point, I don't know. I've said on a few occasions, can I have my show back? And I think at this point, the kid's trying to take it over here. But
please, no, I'm not taking your.
How many times have I asked, can I take my show back? Can I have my show back? I've asked that on quite a few occasions.
You haven't asked that in a while, though.
We'll go back to the tapes. I have the archives. Anyway.
And Fearon, I just want to congratulate you because I do listen to the show when I'm out and about on a Saturday afternoon, and and I have a chance. I do tune in from time to time, and I just think that you've done such a great job continuing the tradition, and I think it's fantastic that you're able to keep this open line of communication open with those great fans that always humbled, for lack of a better word, always humbled me, and I'm sure humbled you as well with their time and their energy and their dedication. Every Saturday afternoon from 12 to 1. I mean, it just amazed me. When you get these calls from Chicago and California, and it's just I think it's great. And congratulations to you for keeping up the great work. It's been awesome. I love listening to the show when I can check in.
Thanks. I mean, we've even recently gone international with one of our good friends of the program, Harry Barnett, who calls all the way over from England.
Well, he's one of your good friends. I don't think he likes me that much. I don't think he likes me.
He does a little bit of Mahoney busting on you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I can get away with that, right? Yeah, I've gotten away with it in the past.
Yeah.
If Merrill's sending congratulations, I don't think he's sending complaints. I don't know. As I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, does Merrill know what he's talking about with the? I don't know. I have this hunch that this is like a script in front of me. He's going, I don't know what I'm reading, but I'm going along with it.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I don't know if you know this, and I won't go into the details and bore your listeners with it. But I'll tell you the commitment that WBCB had to keeping pro wrestling radio, Pro Wrestling Weekly on the air. When I started the show, about I want to say 6 to 8 months after I had started. There were some issues that we had going on with the co-host, with the other co-hosts of the show, which have long since been resolved. And I mean, it's all water under the bridge. But we were hit, when I say we, WBCB was hit with a court injunction to take me off of the air and to continue the show with the other host. And WBCB were and Merrill and all of the staff and management involved were so committed and so supportive that they legally helped to fight that. Obviously, I stayed on the air, and they were committed to that. But it blew me away because, I'm one guy. I'm coming into the radio station for 1 hour a week. If there's anybody expendable at a radio station at that point in time, I'm sure it was me. But yet they really liked what I was doing. They really believed in what I was doing. They saw the amount of calls and the amount of interaction that we were getting on those Saturdays and the live crowds that were coming out to see the shows. And, if it was not for them, backing me up and standing up and supporting the show, 15 years, I mean, this show wouldn't have even seen 10 months at that point in time.
That's an amazing. That's the first time I've heard about that. I'd never gotten any kind of a backstory, whether it, I've only been around for, this is the second program director, so I don't know who, was that back in the Jim Heston days? Or
That was back in the Jim Heston days, and Jim was a huge supporter, and of course, he had to get sign-off from the top, and Jim and Merrill, and again, everybody involved were just really supportive, and again, just still, gives me chills thinking about it, because you don't find a lot of good people like that in this business. So it's just a real honor to be back here 15 years later.
And I'm glad to have you on here. I'm just, I don't know. There's so much to go into. It's kind of like, where do you really pick?
Right.
Yeah. As far as TNA, I guess we'll give them a little bit of a mention, because as you said, it's a lot WWE, but got to give them at least a little bit of. What do you think about them adding a fourth pay-per-view on, adding Sacrifice to the mix in April?
I'll be honest. I really do. I try and keep up with I keep up with TNA, but I can't watch them. I just get turned off to the product, and honestly, this whole heel Dixie thing, it's a lot of fun to watch for the first 30 to 60 seconds, just because of how bad it is. And it's one of the worst. It's one of the biggest train wrecks I've ever seen as a wrestling fan. But after about 60 seconds, I'm done. I don't really get it why they would add this other pay-per-view. Like, what has changed in their business model that made them think, well, now we can go back to pay-per-views, now that we can go back to generating money. They're doing consistent ratings. I gotta give them credit. They are doing some consistent numbers, but I don't understand what has turned around. Is there some kind of buzz created? Maybe they think that the buzz of the WWE Network, maybe they think that wrestling fans will have more disposable cash on a monthly basis now that they don't have to shell out $50 to watch the WWE every month. Maybe that's a big part of it. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens, but I'm kind of surprised that they added that pay-per-view.
Yeah,
no, you go first. You can have your show.
He learns quickly.
Go.
What gets me is that it's so fairly soon after lockdown. You've got lockdown in March, then kind of a few weeks after that, you've got WrestleMania 30, and then fast forward 3 weeks, and you've got TNA Sacrifice, and then not too long after that, Extreme Rules. So, granted, the network will have a lot of, there'll be hopefully a lot of questions answered by then. Granted, we're, 9 days away from the launch of the network?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, a week from this Monday.
It's amazing that it's that close.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but maybe it isn't. I feel like since the announcement of the network, my interest in it has at least slightly dwindled. And I don't know if it's because of the on-air product, if it seems like as far as moving, we're spending so much time, looking at the past aspect of things, looking at all the archives, that we're not really looking at what's going on currently, which, I don't know. I like Betty White and all, but having her on Raw and having her do some of Vince's infamous poop humor, for lack of a better term.
I'm gonna whip them, you know what? No, my mom laughed at that, but that's just my mom. I don't think anybody else is gonna laugh at that.
Well, Betty White.
Betty White.
Even if she doesn't know anything about wrestling, she's just entertaining for the sake of being entertaining. Her history and her pedigree as far as performance in television, movies, and whatnot is unheralded.
But if I just hope they're not trying. Nobody can replace Mae Young. I just called her Mae White. I'm an idiot. I hope they're not trying to replace Mae Young.
Yeah, you were kind of going for. Maybe they initially, when they tried to bring her in, they thought that they could bring Mae in as well and kind of have some sort of a face-to-face or face-off. Unfortunately, her health.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what they were thinking.
Can I ask you a question?
You just did. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I did, actually. Can I ask you a follow-up?
Yes, absolutely.
You just did.
So, over the last 5 years that you've been driving the ship here, as far as guests that you've had on, who has been the best? What has anybody said anything to you during an interview that blew you away, that you just never heard of? Like what are some of your best guest memories over the last 5 years?
Well,
AJ Lee.
Yeah, I was going to say, not too long ago, I did have the chance to talk with AJ Lee, and that was, that was a fun 20-minute conversation. Interviewing over the phone, WWE was very gracious in helping with that.
Call
I guess
her
from
back. Call her back. Call her back.
Will you stop marking out over there?
Sorry.
Teenagers. No, Lex Luger, talking with him was very awe-inspiring, and I think a lot of it is because that was where it was probably the most difficult for me to kind of take off my fan hat and put on my broadcast journalist hat, just because I grew up, and when I started following wrestling it was in '93. It was just at the very, very tail end of Hulkamania. So, I kind of latched on to the whole Lex Express thing. So, there I was, a 12-year-old boy, all clad in red, white, and blue. I was one of those people that Vince wanted to make Lex that next great American hero, what Hogan was in the 80s and early 90s. Didn't exactly pan out that way.
How was he? Was he a good interview?
He was a great interview. I'll admit I've had some personal anxieties and things that have kept me from reaching out to him, but that's something I've been trying to work on getting over since
Fearon, can you read me a bedtime story? It's your biggest fan.
You know what, Fearon? I'll be honest with you. That was probably my biggest challenge in doing the show. Was I'd get these guests, but I'm not the best networker as far as following up and reaching out once again. I'd like to give people their space. But at the same time, I know that there's a huge networking aspect to this. I mean, fortunately, I've been able to maintain a really nice friendship with Bruno Sammartino over the years, and still do, and still interview him from time to time. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the toughest things is, you interview these guys or girls, and you have a great interview, and you talk so much in setting it up. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And then you want to give them that space, but at the same time, you kind of want to keep the networking going. So yeah, it's definitely a fine dance that you got to do.
A very difficult balance, without question. One that I've been trying to work on for a while, and a lot of it actually came with a buddy of mine who does another show, Completely Damaged. May or may not have heard of that.
Yes, I know. What's his name?
RC, yeah.
Cameron. Yes.
Yeah, but thanks to him, I was able to go up and meet and talk with Diamond Dallas Page, and that got me going with the whole DDP yoga thing, and that's been a lot of fun, and my back is thanking me for doing it.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you how your DDP yoga was going. I saw you tweeting about it.
Yeah, it's, I was on it for quite a while, and then, you pop the DVDs in on a daily basis, and you hear, the same sequence after a while, and you hear the same jokes. One of the positions that he has you do is a butterfly type stroke, and every time I hear him make the Michael Phelps joke, I want to take my remote and throw it through the TV. Similarly to Mick Foley throwing a brick through his TV after the Rumble.
Right.
I swear to God, when we're texting, he even plugs DDP yoga. Like, sorry, I just got off of a quick DDP yoga session.
Well, because you had texted me, and then I didn't respond within like 15 minutes, and you were like, well, so I was letting you know what I was doing.
I know.
I could have just said workout,
I'm
but
just busting your Mahonies, Fearon. Yeah. You see how great we feud with this, Eric? It's just...
Oh, the camaraderie is unbelievable. It's funny. I had an intern. I had an intern a couple of times. Actually, my two interns that I had have gone on to pretty darn good things there. So maybe, Lucas, you're in the right passenger seat there, because the two interns that I had have gone on some pretty good things now that I think about it.
Well, thank you.
And he's very green in the process, as I kind of was when I came into it. I think at this point, yeah, he's greener than Doink the Clown's hair. Facebook keeps blowing up here. Doug from our good friends over at George's Cards and Collectibles saying, "You're welcome, Fearon, for your best interview with Lex Luger." I kind of knew he was going to chime in with something. Let me quick mention. I've got to give these guys a quick pub. They're kicking off 2014 with a bang. Lots going on with George's Cards and Collectibles. In fact, right now, former WWE Divas champion Caitlin is over at the Oxford Valley Mall location in the Sears Court now until 3 p.m. So, for those of you tuning in, hop in the car, turn on WBCB. You got it going in the car, make your way over to Oxford Valley Mall. She's there until 3 o'clock. And just when you think they're done, they've got more coming. 2 weeks from now, Saturday, March 1st, the same person who Merrill Reese says that Eric and I look like, Mick Foley, will be at George's the Oxford Valley Mall from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Following that up, 4 weeks after that, March 29th, former WWE superstar Rikishi will be at George's in the Oxford Valley Mall from 1 to 3 p.m., so I'll try to hop on out of here and head over for that.
To quote Gary Wolf, that's too cool.
Oh, dear.
Remember that last week?
Yeah, I remember that last week. Yeah, we had Pitbull 1 in studio last week. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. He's working with a couple of guys, a local wrestler, Corey Castle, and a filmmaker, Anthony Bruno. They're working on a film called Wrestling with Disaster, a documentary. Okay. And they had their big announcement on here last week. The final cut of the movie, the final shoot that they're doing is going to be a huge show down at the old ECW arena coming up in June 14th, I believe it is.
That's great. No, I know Corey from our days in CZW.
Yeah, Corey's a great guy. I had no idea he and I are both Neshaminy grads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we had that local connection.
As well as the new Penn State coach.
Yes.
A little bit of trivia there. I went to elementary school and sat in many, many classes with the new Penn State coach.
How about that?
Yes.
Crazy, crazy stuff.
Small world.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm still trying to figure out how I stumbled upon this. Well, yeah, I was doing overnights here. That's what it was. I had the one overnight a week, and I may get in trouble for mentioning it. The Chris Benoit of WBCB, but I'll mention him anyway. The big kahuna, Paul Baroli. He had mentioned that you were looking to move on to do what you had done with the Camel Clutch blog, or what you had planned on doing, which you've certainly set out to do. And you had mentioned that you wanted to keep the show going, and that's I just kind of right place, right time. Here I am.
Can I just say something real quick? Speaking of Chris Benoit, I just wanted to tell everybody out there. There's this thing on WWE 2K14 called the online marketplace, and there was you can share created wrestlers and stuff. There was a created Chris Benoit wrestler, and there was a T-shirt that said "I'm a Benoit guy," and I could not. I texted Fearon
akin to a Paul Heyman guy. Yeah. You've been chomping at the bit to get that out on the air.
When we were talking about Dixie Carter, there was a Dixie Carter and an EC3 created wrestler. EC3 had 0 downloads. And Dixie Carter had -3.
-3 downloads.
Yeah, get it.
Well, no. Going back to what you were saying, Fearon. I remember when I had the conversation with Paul that I was looking to move on and do some different things, and I had suggested you because you and I had talked a few times. You came out to one of the remotes I did at the bowl. I think I was in a bowling alley with the Philly Fanatic.
Over in Morrisville, yeah.
And and I talked to him about it, and I said, look, we've built this thing. We have something going here. It's not like it's on the decline. I mean, we have more calls per week than we could take. Let's keep it going. Talk to Fearon, see if he's interested. But I think he'd be a great addition to it. So I'm glad things worked out, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just every week I'm trying to figure out A, how to keep it going, and B, how to get through every week with more and more sleep deprivation.
Yeah, I bet. It's funny too. I know I mentioned this in the beginning, but even throughout the entire tenure that I had there on the show, I would always come in. I would always come in with these pages of notes. And the funny thing about it is I'd never even have to go to them because I would always have calls from the start, the second I came in to the second I left. And sometimes people would even track me down at home somehow and find my number. But, you get these calls. And
they don't give them any ideas.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I would always put this work in and try and, come up with all these notes and topics. And, after a while, somebody that I was talking to at the radio station, I forget who it was. I said, why do you go through the trouble of doing all that when you never get to it? I said, because you never know. What happens if one day the phone line doesn't work and I have to sit there and riff for an hour? What happens if one day everybody just decides they don't want to call today? And, fortunately, knock on wood, that never happened. But, yeah, I remember for me always coming in, laying down a notebook full of notes on the table in the room and maybe getting to about 3 lines in the book before the end of the show and spending hours preparing it.
What's funny, Lucas is just smiling like a Cheshire cat because he's looking at me and I've got 5 pages of notes spread out in front of me. We've not touched, and we've touched maybe one line of it.
Yeah,
the TNA Sacrifice pay-per-view is all we've talked about. And George's Cards and Collectibles,
not even one page. That's awesome.
It's a good problem to have, though, right?
It is. But one thing I did kind of want to get your take on, and actually that way I can get some of these notes used out of the way. The Raw announce team mocking the CM Punk chants, and the I guess video and audio that was released of that.
There was actually a Facebook post that. Believe it was.
Yeah, it is on the Facebook fan page. Thanks to John from Northeast Philly. He puts the video up. Yeah,
guys,
real professional guys. Hashtag douchebags. Hashtag Cole sucks. Hashtag chance rule.
Wait, we can say that, or at least you can.
I have a little bit of a different take on the whole CM Punk thing than a lot of people do, because I know that probably among the listeners of your show, and I know among the people in social media and the readers that come to the Camel Clutch blog, they're all in favor of it. I think it was very unprofessional, what he did.
Yeah.
I know from working with him on the independents in the past, and I know from people that work with him in WWE that he could be a little difficult to work with at times. And as the story has started to come out about why he left and things around it, I think those chants are pretty dumb, quite frankly. It's almost tantamount to you and I going to a bunch of NFL games throughout the season and chanting for Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders is my favorite NFL player of all time, but he quit. He quit. He walked away, and you have all these fans chanting CM Punk, CM Punk. It's like, don't go to Raw and chant for CM Punk. Go to his house, because
that's where he is. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's the one that walked away. It's not like they're keeping him away. It's like he abandoned you guys. He walked away from the company, and yet you're chanting on WWE shows, CM Punk, CM Punk, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I think the announcers leaking that, nothing ever gets leaked in that company, without it being intentional. So I know they're putting it out there that it was leaked, but I know that they intentionally put it out there, and that. I almost started to think after that came out, like, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe he decided to come back and they're going to make an angle out of it, because something like that is only going to encourage more chants, and I would think they want them to go away. I guess the big story for on will be what happens when they go to Chicago.
On March 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, if he's going to come back, that's the night he's going to come back.
They are going to tear them a new one if he doesn't. And
if they go off the air that night and he's not on the show, I think he's done. But if he's coming back, that'll be the night.
They're not even going to announce it. I feel like I hope they don't announce it, just so everybody's like, oh, what's going to... Actually, I feel like they should announce it, because that whole thing with Daniel Bryan at the Rumble, that was like the biggest letdown. One of the biggest.
Yeah, I don't really understand that, and I say that respectfully, because Daniel Bryan was never announced for the Royal Rumble, so I don't really know why people were so upset, because it's not like he was ever booked to be in the Rumble. He was in the match, and I think it would have been great if he was in the Rumble, and I was watching, and I think Tommy Dreamer tweeted about it, and I was thinking the same thing when Rey Mysterio came out. I'm like, they really should just put Daniel Bryan under the Rey Mysterio mask and have him come out and do a couple moves or something. But I didn't really understand the outrage there, because it's not like they promised that he was going to be there, or they promoted he was going to be there. It's like they never once told you he was going to be in the Rumble.
And if not, at least I'm saying, like, at least if Daniel Bryan didn't even enter, at least have CM Punk win it. Like, the whole thing with Kane was just bogus. I say bogus because I can't say the other word on
but yes, actually, way to go, Sid.
Can I actually just bring something up real quick? I'm not trying to interrupt.
Sure, go ahead.
Take a show away. There was actually a thing, I want to give a shout out to my teacher, Mr. Steele. He told me about this, and I looked it up. I don't know if I forget. I thought it was on YouTube, but I looked it up. It wasn't there. But there's a satellite radio talk show about pro wrestling that apparently a former WWE employee called in and said something, or he wrote a letter and said something that CM Punk's actually been acting like a real female dog about it. Really, and I'm saying
he's been very uncooperative.
Yeah, he's really a shut up.
That was actually in Figure 4 Weekly.
Figure 4 Weekly. Okay, Brian Alvarez.
He's like a shutout backstage. Like guys like CM Punk, like Daniel Bryan and Cena, they'll hang with anybody, anywhere, anytime. Punk sort of has an inner circle sort of thing. Won't really let a lot of other wrestlers under his wing. And another thing is he's actually got some resentment towards Daniel Bryan because Daniel Bryan's turning to be the new anti-authority figure, and CM Punk doesn't want that. He wants to headline WrestleMania. He's not happy with CM Punk Triple H, and that was apparently that was the match that they were going into.
Well, you can't play the game if you're sitting at home.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
They were going to, and I feel like, but if they do make it an angle, watch him come back, and then CM Punk not CM Punk Daniel Bryan, CM Punk Triple H. Like I feel like, yeah. But it's the same thing that, like, when I'm not going to bash the Rattlesnake, love the Rattlesnake to death, but I'm not saying he's like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but at the same time, like, CM Punk sort of turned his back on the fans. If you're really going to practice what you preach, do it for the fans. Don't do it because you're getting the same crap. Why do you think Rey Mysterio's still in the ring right now? He's not getting anything, and he's still wrestling because he comes out there and he does it for the fans. You see him do that with the little kids wearing the masks every single time. You can have your show back now, Fearon.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Steve Austin because Austin had talked about this. I think it was on his podcast that when Austin walked out, I think it was 2002.
Mm-hmm.
I might be wrong.
No, you're right. 2002.
And I was doing Pro Wrestling Radio back then at BCB. One of the things that Austin said is that when he left, he lost a boatload of money because he was owed a ton of money in royalties and bonuses and cuts. And by him walking out, that was him breaching his contract, and they didn't have to pay him. So he lost out, especially a guy like him. He lost out on millions
and the funny thing was,
dollars. And what he had mentioned is that by Punk walking out like that, if the WWE decides to play hardball with him, Punk's a big merchandise seller. He's probably giving up, $1 million, maybe $2 million of revenue in bonuses and things like that they could pull. And when his contract is due in July, and he could have just stayed until July and fulfilled his deal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in March. I mean, apparently the guy has done pretty well financially, but it's a lot of money to leave on the table, and for him to come back in March and do his time until July in order to get that money, maybe it's worthwhile to him.
The thing is, sorry, okay.
Oh, that's good. We are way up against the timeout. I'm here. Yeah, I know.
I'm going to shut up now. You can have your show back. I'm going to.
All right. Let's take care of our second timeout and then wrap things up. That's how quickly things are rolling here. We've only got a few minutes left, and then Nick Cataldi, he'll be up with the country music here. Coming back with Eric Gargiulo. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
Hi, this is Bill Redner at WBCB, and I remember when we first started doing Pro Wrestling Weekly, brought to you by the Peruzzi Automotive Group. And like Peruzzi, Fearon is still going down the radio road with the best in wrestling news every Saturday right here on 1490. Good luck and continued success.
Pro Wrestling Weekly presents Today in Wrestling History, February 15. On this date in 1989, the NWA held its Clash of the Champions 5 St. Valentine's Day Massacre Supercard. In the main event, Tenryu and the Road Warriors fought Kevin Sullivan, Steve Williams, and Mike Rotunda to a double disqualification in a match for the NWA Six-Man Tag Team Championship. On this date in 1998, the WWF held its No Way Out of Texas pay-per-view. In the main event, Cactus Jack, Chainsaw Charlie, Owen Hart, and Steve Austin defeated the New Age Outlaws, Triple H, and Savio Vega in a no disqualification 8-man tag team match. On this date in 2004, WWE held its No Way Out pay-per-view. In the main event, Eddie Guerrero pinned Brock Lesnar to win the WWE Championship. This has been Today in Wrestling History, February 15. Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon Derry here alongside Lucas the Intern, Nick Cataldi, turning the dials, pushing the buttons.
Yay.
There we go. It's it's almost expected at this point. And on the phone with us, the original host of Pro Wrestling Radio, Pro Wrestling Weekly, celebrating 15 years on the air here, the longest-running pro wrestling radio talk show in the history of terrestrial radio. I feel like Michael Cole every time I say that. Man, some of that history stuff just kind of jumps out at me, like the No Way Out of Texas pay-per-view from 16 years ago now. Savio Vega, talk about one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Hearing Bill Redner there, again, just so much support over the years at BCB. And, I'll tell you one thing I don't miss is getting those random calls about 3 days before a radio show saying, hey, you're going to do a live remote today on a pumpkin farm in the middle of December when it's minus 10 degrees. Those are calls that I don't miss getting on Wednesday afternoons.
I can't say that I haven't
gotten being a sissy.
Can't say I haven't gotten a couple of those, or a check cashing place, or there are some where you just kind of go, how am I going to do this? But
you could
that's
handle
what we
it.
do.
You could handle it. You got married, didn't you?
Well, I did get married.
So
yeah.
you can handle anything. Right.
Yeah, but he gave up the show to do it.
You mean she made you go to the show? You said you're not doing that show anymore. Is that what is that who tried to get you off the air? Your wife?
And one thing I do want to say too is I also want to give condolences on the passing of Bill Melody, my former partner in crime, the dynamic duo that we were. Bill and I had a rocky start there, and we didn't see eye to eye when we first got the show going, but eventually we really wound up working well together and developing a really sweet friendship, and I miss seeing him on Saturdays. We'd have a really good time together on Saturdays, and I'm sure you do as well, and I just want to offer my condolences to friends and family of Bill's, and I miss him. I miss seeing him every Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, you obviously had a lot.
I know what that means.
I hope there are no coconuts around the studio, or else Fearon
dear,
one to the forehead.
That's all right. I'm hard-headed.
I miss Bill.
I'm sure I'll know.
I miss Bill also, fellas. I really do. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he owed me $10. Oh, come on! I was gonna laugh on that one.
Yeah, I know. Sold that too.
I hear?
Apparently, yeah. But how did those crickets get in the studio?
I'm not wasting any more good material on you two.
You got to find it first.
Oh, I know where your car is.
Oh man, but wow, 15 years. I mean, you threw it out to me. I mean, and I think I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. I mean, what guest? I mean, you had a litany more guests than I have because you were on twice as long as I was. But I mean, what guest I guess jumped out at you the most as far as I don't know whether striking a chord with you emotionally or giving some sort of some sort of an answer that just kind of threw you for a loop, something like that.
Well, and I'll keep it short because I know we're up against the clock here. Bruno Sammartino is definitely my favorite because we just developed a friendship over the years, and Bruno would come on, and he didn't care about making anybody mad. He just said what he felt, and whether fans agreed with him or didn't, and he was just always so gracious. I mean, whenever I would call him, I'll come on, and he got me a lot of headlines. He would say some great things and really drew some nice attention to the show. But like you, Fearon, I mean, I really would get I would really get excited about talking to the guys that I watched growing up as a kid. Guys like Paul Orndorff when he would come on the show, and Dusty Rhodes, Bret Hart, Ricky Steamboat was one of my favorites. One story I love to tell was I booked Ricky Steamboat for an interview. I talked to him twice on the show, and when we booked the interview, he's like, 20 minutes, that's all I got, that's all I can give you is 20, it's got to be a hard 20, so I'm like, okay, and we hit 20, and we were having such a good time, and he said, let's keep it going. And an hour later, we're done the interview. And I mean, that's typical Ricky Steamboat. Bobby the Brain Heenan, probably one of, if not my favorites. He was the same thing. 20 minutes is all I can give you. And 20 minutes into the interview, he said, I'm having fun. He said, let's keep this thing going. And he stayed the hour. He asked me, he said, let's open up the phone lines, take some calls. all those guys that I grew up watching, like the Heenans, the Orndorffs, the Dusties, even Bruno's, was a little before my time. I mean, what an honor. I mean, just what a cool job it was to do on those Saturdays. I miss that the most, being able to talk to those guys.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I know it's a little harder now that you got the missus, the little one roaming around. But I mean, anytime you want to pipe on in, you're certainly more than welcome to.
Definitely, I would love to. Let's set something up, down the line, and I would love to do it, especially when the weather gets nicer, because who knows what tomorrow's going to bring in.
Oh yeah, I mean we got stuff coming down here now. I haven't looked outside to see whether it's wet or white, but
yeah, exactly.
I know there's something coming down.
Friday, it really was so much fun. I mean, it went way too fast. I'd love to do it again, and I mean, I just really want to congratulate you and the radio station and everybody involved that had a hand in Pro Wrestling Radio and Pro Wrestling Weekly over the last 15 years. It's really something to be proud of, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Hey, without you, I wouldn't be here now. So I mean, okay, the congrats are all around, and the thanks to you as well.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe 15 years from now we'll both be on chatting with host Lucas DeSangro. Who knows?
there you go. And he'll be in his Benoit T-shirt.
There we go. His I'm a Benoit guy T-shirt. I'll probably roll in with an 0-3-16 shirt just for fun as well.
Right.
All right, Eric Gargiulo, thanks so much for coming on, celebrating 15 years here at Pro Wrestling Weekly, and. Next week, well, we'll preview Elimination Chamber, get all my predictions certain to go wrong, have a lot of fun with that, and who knows what else is going to happen. But for now, I know I'm going to get in trouble if we don't get to the news here, so let me take care of that. Thanks for listening to Pro Wrestling Weekly. Stay tuned. Nick Cataldi's next.